Hello, anatomists. Michelle Glass here, and let's finish up our conversation about cardiovascular structures by looking at our fetal circulation. So let's begin by talking about this interesting organ here called the placenta. Now, the placenta is interesting to me because it actually is composed of tissue from two individuals. So we'll see that we have tissue from the fetus, which is talking about a gestational period before birth. And then we'll see that the placenta is also formed by the gestational parent or mother's tissue. And this is actually our location for gas exchange. So we're going to have the capillary bed of the fetus here in close proximity to the capillary bed of the parent. And so we're able to get diffusion of gases from the fetus to the parent, from the parent to the fetus, as well as nutrients from the parent to the fetus and waste from the fetus to the parent. And so what this means is that the fetus does not need to use lungs for gas exchange. And also that means that the fetus does not need to use the liver to really process nutrients because nutrients have been processed by the mother or gestational parent. We have connecting the placenta to the fetus a structure called the umbilical cord. And we see running through this cord both umbilical veins and umbilical arteries. Now remember, the placenta is serving as the location for gas exchange, and so this explains why the blood moving through the umbilical vein is going to be represented in red. It's oxygen rich. And we know that the term vein is telling us that it's taking blood back to the heart. Now, this umbilical vein is going to go through a vessel called the ductus venosus. And this vessel is significant because it's allowing that blood supply to really bypass the liver. Now, of course, there's blood going to the liver in order to keep that tissue nourished, but the liver is not functioning. The fetal liver is not functioning in the same way it will in the adult because all of that is being taken care of by the mother or gestational parent. We'll see the ductus venosus feeds into the inferior vena cava, which then of course feeds into the right atrium. We have our right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle here. Now notice you have a passageway moving, allowing blood to move between the right atria directly to the left, right atrium directly to the left atrium. And this passageway here is open. It's called the foramen ovale. And the adult, once it's closed, we'll see it called the fossa ovalis. Now, what's important here is this is a one-way movement. So this foramen ovale is really more of like a valve or flap. And we'll see that blood can move from the right atrium to the left atrium, but it cannot really go in the other direction. Looking at the right ventricle, we'll see that the blood moves up and out through the pulmonary trunk. But notice that the pulmonary trunk has a direct feed into the aorta. That direct feed is called the ductus arteriosus. So here we're seeing both the foramen ovale and the ductus arteriosus as bypassing the lungs. And again, we of course have blood supply to the lungs. We're nourishing this tissue, keeping it alive, healthy, and aiding it in its development. But we are not seeing the lungs for gas exchange. Instead, we see that happening at the placenta. This is why so many of these vessels in the fetal circulation are shown here in purple, because we are getting a mixture of oxygen rich and oxygen poor blood together circulating through the fetus. Now, at birth, we'll see when the infant takes a breath, the lungs will expand, and this will cause pulmonary vessels to expand. And blood will then rush into that pulmonary circuit. And this will increase the oxygen levels in the infant's bloodstream. This increase in oxygen levels will cause a constriction of that ductus arteriosus. And so we no longer have blood able to flow directly from the pulmonary trunk into the aorta. We'll also see that as pressure increases in the left atrium, remember that's going to want to push blood from left atrium to right atrium, which is not possible because that kind of movement would actually close off the foramen ovale. So then the flap closes, and we see that that becomes the fossa ovalis in the adult. We'll see both the umbilical arteries and umbilical veins degenerating after birth and becoming important ligaments. So the umbilical vein will become a round ligament of the liver. And we'll see umbilical arteries becoming bladder ligaments in the adult. All right, so that's it for our cardiovascular structures. We don't have any practice videos for this particular playlist because you have your diagrams to practice with. And as always, take care of yourselves and each other.